Hello students, good morning to all of you. Today we are going to learn another new chapter, and this chapter is from the supplementary reader textbook for class 10. The name of the textbook is Footprints Without Feet. So this is the first chapter, A Triumph of Surgery. So this is the name of the chapter, A Triumph of Surgery, written by James Herriot. So in this chapter, the chapter talks about a lady called Bumfrey and her pet dog called Tricky. So the title of this chapter, A Triumph of Surgery. What does it mean? A triumph means victory or success. Surgery here, it refers to veterinary hospital. Okay, so first make it clear the meaning of the title. Triumph means victory or success, and surgery here refers to a veterinary hospital. So you can see there it's written, Tricky, a small dog, is pampered and overfed by his rich mistress. He falls seriously ill and his mistress consults a veterinary surgeon. Does he perform an operation? Does the dog recover? So these are the two questions. Okay. So in this chapter, it talks about a bad dog called Tricky, a very small dog, and this dog is pampered by the owner. Owner, that is Mrs. Bumfrey. And the bad dog is overfed by his rich mistress, and so the dog falls seriously ill, and his mistress consults a veterinary surgeon or the doctor. Okay, so here you will find the pronoun I. Okay, I is the narrator, and here the narrator is a veterinary surgeon or a veterinary doctor. Now let us start the chapter. I'll do the explanation as well as I will also tell you the word meanings. Now on the top there are three questions. Once you understand the lesson, you will be able to answer those three questions. Now let us start the chapter. I was really worried about Tricky this time. I had pulled up my car when I saw him in the street with his mistress, and I was shocked at his appearance. He had become hugely fat, like a bloated sausage with a leg at each corner. His eyes, bloodshot and rheumy, stared straight ahead, and his tongue lolled from his jaws. I means the narrator, that is the veterinary doctor. Here you have seen a word called sausage. Sausage means finely minced meat stuffed into long cylindrical cases and divided into small lengths by twisting or dyeing. So this is referred to the appearance of the Tricky. Tricky has become hugely fat. So here the narrator says that he was really worried about the dog, okay, that time. On that day, as he was moving by his car, he saw Tricky along with his mistress in the street. And he was shocked and he stopped by seeing the appearance of Tricky. Now, what about his appearance? His appearance, he means Tricky, the dog, okay, the bad dog. So he had become hugely fat, like a bloated sausage with a leg at each corner. And his eyes, bloodshot means his eyes had become red in color. And he had, okay, the eyes and the nose, it was rheumy. Rheumy means secreting out water, okay, a watery eye, okay, or secreting a water, okay, or a liquid from his nose. Got it? So his eyes bloodshot and rheumy and stared straight ahead, and his tongue lolled from his jaws, and his tongue was hanging loosely from his jaws. So which means by seeing this, he understood that this Tricky was seriously ill. Mrs. Pumphrey hastened to explain. He was so listless, Mr. Harriot. He seemed to have no energy. I thought he must be suffering from malnutrition, so I have been giving him some little extras between meals to build him up, some malt and goat liver oil and a bowl of Horlicks at night to make him sleep. Nothing much really." Now Mrs. Pumphrey, he quickly explains to the doctor, that is the narrator. She says that this Tricky was so listless. Listless means lacking energy. He was so lazy, okay? He doesn't have any energy. So what this mistress thought was that she thought that the dog was suffering from malnutrition. Malnutrition means a lack of adequate nourishment. Okay, so she thought that this dog was suffering from malnutrition. So what she did was that she started giving him some extra meals. Okay, in between the meals, she started giving extra to build him up. So those extras were some malt. Malt means some grains, barley, and also goat liver oil, a fish called goat. Okay, so the liver of that fish, okay, oil. So goat liver oil was also given to that dog, that is Tricky, and a bowl of Horlicks was also given to the dog at night to make him sleep. And after giving all this, the lady told to the doctor that she has given nothing more, just only few things. This is what she says. But this is not just a few things. She has given plenty, okay, in between the meals, but she wasn't aware. Actually, okay, the dog was not suffering from malnutrition. The dog Tricky, the small dog, was overfed, okay, overfed, and the dog has become overweight. Got it? So this is what the lady, that is Mrs. Pumphrey, told to the doctor. And did you cut down on the sweet things as I told you? Oh, I did for a bit, but he seemed to be so weak I had to relent. He does love cream cakes and chocolates, so I can't bear to refuse him. So after hearing that, the doctor asks the lady, that is Mrs. Pumphrey, whether she had cut down some sweets. Cut down means she had stopped giving him the sweets, the sweet things. Because earlier the doctor might have told her, okay, the doctor told her to stop giving less sweets to that Tricky. So the doctor asks again whether she has followed his instructions or not. Then the lady says, oh, I did for a bit. That means for a few days she did it, but later on again she found that the dog was very weak, and so she stopped. Okay, she stopped doing that, and she started giving him sweets. And the lady says that the dog, that is Tricky, loves cream cakes and chocolates, so she cannot bear to refuse him, and she started giving him more sweets, the cream cakes and the chocolates. I looked down again at the little dog. That was the trouble. Tricky's only fault was greed. He had never been known to refuse food. He would tackle a meal at any hour of the day or night, and I wondered about all the things Mrs. Pumphrey hadn't mentioned. Are you giving him plenty of exercise? Well, he has his little walks with me, as you can see, but Hodkin the gardener has been down with lumbago, so there has been no ring throwing lately. Okay, so the narrator, that is the doctor, the veterinary doctor, looked down again to that little dog. And he saw, yes, this is the problem. This was the trouble. Okay, why? Because the mistress loves the dog so much that she had pampered the dog so much, and she had overfed the dog. And now the dog is suffering. So now the narrator says that Tricky's only fault was greed. What was the fault? What was the fault of the Tricky? That was his greed for food. He was so greedy for food. Okay, he never refused the dog, that is Tricky. He never refused food anytime. Okay, anytime, any hour of the day or night, he is ready to have food. Okay, so this is his fault. And He wondered about the things Mrs. Pumphrey hadn't mentioned. Mrs. Pumphrey did not mention everything, but the doctor had understood that the mistress, that is Mrs. Pumphrey, had given him extra in his diet, that he has become overweight, and this is the reason why the dog is suffering. So after that, again, he asked a question to that mistress, are you giving him plenty of exercise? Okay, so he asked whether she is giving she is giving plenty of exercise to that tricky or not. Then she said that yes, the dog does just little walks with her. And now that Hawking is the gardener. Okay, the gardener is suffering from lumbago. He has been down with lumbago. Lumbago means backache, the lower back. Okay, he has a back pain. Okay, a back pain, and so the gardener could not accompany the dog. Otherwise, earlier when he was all right, he and the dog. Okay, they used to play. Okay, they used to do an exercise by throwing ring. Okay, he will throw the ring, and the dog will go and bring the fetch the ring to him. But this lady says that the gardener, that is Hawking, he has been down with lumbago. He has a lower back pain, and so these days the dog is not doing any exercise, only just going for a walk with her. So this is what the mistress replied to the doctor. Now let us see the next page. Now you can see the picture here. That is the picture of the mistress, Mrs. Pumphrey, and the veterinary doctor. So it is in the street, and you can see the tricky, how fat, how overweight the tricky is, and he is also lolling his dung, hanging loosely his dung, and he looks very sick also, and he doesn't have any energy. So both of them, they are discussing about that tricky, that is the dog, the bad dog, the small dog. Okay, now let us see the next. I tried to sound severe. Now I really mean this. If you don't guard his foot right down and give him more exercise, he is going to be really ill. You must harden your heart and keep him on a very strict diet. I tried to sound severe means very seriously, He told to the lady that she has to guard down his foot, Otherwise, he will become really ill. And so she has to harden her heart, and she should keep him on a very strict diet. Otherwise, Tricky, her pet dog, will be really ill. So this is what the doctor has told to Mrs. Pumphrey very seriously. Mrs. Pumphrey wrung her hands. Oh, I will. Mr. Harriot, I'm sure you are right, but it is so difficult, so very difficult. She set off, head down along the road, as if determined to put the new regime into practice immediately. Then after that, this lady, she wrung her hands. She shook her hands and she said, yes, I'll do it, Mr. Harriot. Mr. Harriot, that is the narrator or the veterinary doctor. And so after saying so, after like the lady says that it is very difficult to cut down his foot, but she will try, she will try. This is what she said, because the doctor has already told to her that if she doesn't cut down his foot, then the Tricky, that is her pet dog, will really be ill or he will be in a serious condition. So the lady says that yes, she will try to do it, though it is difficult. So she set off, and she looked down along the road, and as if like by seeing her, as if she is determined to put the new regime, the new practice. What was the new practice? The new practice was to to cut down his foot. She was giving more food, to that Tricky, right? And he has become overweight, and this is the reason why the dog is suffering. So the way she has gone, okay, from there, it seems as if she is determined to put the new practice or new regime into practice immediately. But let us see whether she will do it or not. I watched their progress with growing concern. Tricky was tottering along in his little tweed coat. He had a whole wardrobe of his coats for the cold weather and a raincoat for the wet days. He struggled on, dropping in his harness. I thought it wouldn't be long before I heard from Mrs. Bumfrey. Okay, so as they left, this doctor was standing there and was looking or watching at this mistress and the dog. And what he found was that Tricky was tottering. Tottering means Tricky was walking very unsteadily because he doesn't have any energy, okay, along with a little tweed coat. So the dog was wearing a tweed coat. Tweed coat means a coat which is made of rough woolen fabric. Okay, you can see in the picture. Okay, he is wearing a coat. So that is a tweed coat. Okay, so as he saw the Tricky, okay, this dog from behind, he found that the dog could not walk properly, unsteadily. Okay, he was walking unsteadily because he doesn't have any energy. And now the narrator also says that this very Tricky has got many gods in his wardrobe. Okay, gods for cold weather, as again gods for a raincoat for the wet days. Okay, this shows how much this mistress has pampered on that pet dog, that is Tricky. And as they left, this doctor, he thought that very soon Mrs. Pumphrey will make a call, because the dog seems to be very serious, where the lady is not that much aware of. So he thought that the lady will make a call, to him. Now let us see the next. The expected call came within a few days. Mrs. Pumphrey was distraught. Tricky would eat nothing, refused even his favorite dishes, and besides he had bouts of vomiting. He spent all his time lying on a rock, panting, didn't want to go for walks, didn't want to do anything. I had made my plans in advance. The only way was to get Tricky out of the house for a period. I suggested that he be hospitalized for about a fortnight to be kept under observation. So, as he thought of Mrs. Pumphrey that she will call him, yes, the expected call came within a few days. Mrs. Pumphrey called him because Mrs. Pumphrey was distraught. Distraught means extremely worried. Why? Because Tricky would eat nothing. Tricky had stopped eating, and even Tricky refused to have his favorite dishes. Okay, and he had bouts of vomiting for a short period of time. Okay, the dog was also vomiting. So the lady, that is the mistress, Mrs. Pumphrey, was very much worried. So what the dog did was that he spent all his time lying on a rock, panting, taking a bread, a heavy bread, and didn't want to go for walks and didn't want to do anything, no energy. The dog was just lying on the rock and didn't have food also. Even his favorite dishes he doesn't want to have. He refused. So this doctor, he had made his plans in advance. That is, to bring the Tricky, and keep it in the hospital, veterinary hospital, surgery. Surgery means, I have already told you, that is the veterinary hospital. So he had a plan to keep the Tricky in the surgery for a period, for some time. And he suggested, the doctor suggested that the pet dog has to be hospitalized for about a fortnight. Fortnight means a period of 2 weeks, say like 15 days. The dog has to be kept under observation. So this is what the doctor told to Mrs. Pumphrey. The poor lady almost swooned. She was sure he would pine and die if he did not see her every day. So when she heard that one from the doctor, the poor lady almost swooned. Swooned means fainted. She was almost fainted, because she was very sure that he would pine. He would pine means he would suffer mentally and physically. His mental and physical will decline. Why? Because the dog and this very Mrs. Mistress Bumfrey has a very close attachment towards one another. Okay, she loves the dog so much, and the dog also loves her so much. So if they don't see each other, okay, then they will die. So this is what she thought. Okay, and she was almost about to get fainted, swooned. Okay, but I took a firm line. Tricky was very ill, and this was the only way to save him. In fact, I thought it best to take him without delay, and followed by Mrs. Pomfrey's wailings. I marched out to the car carrying the little dog wrapped in a blanket. Then after that, what the doctor did was that the doctor had gone, okay, to take this very bad dog. Okay, he took a firm decision. Tricky was very ill, and he felt that being a doctor, he felt that this will be the best, okay, for the dog, okay, to treat him, to make him well, fit and fine. Okay, so he wanted to keep the dog in the surgery. So this was the only way to save the dog. So he wanted to take the dog without any delay, okay, from her house. So he went there and he took the dog, followed by Mrs. Pomfrey's wailing. Mrs. Pomfrey was crying. Wailing means crying, okay? So he marched out. Though she was crying, he did not turn back, but he just took the dog and he marched out to the car carrying the little dog wrapped in a blanket. Now let us see the next. The entire staff was roused, and maids rushed in and out, bringing his day bed, his night bed, favorite cushions, toys, and rubber rings. Breakfast bowl, lunch bowl, supper bowl. Realizing that my car would never hold all the stuff, I started to drive away. As I moved off, Mrs. Pomfrey, with a despairing cry, threw an armful of the little goats through the window. I looked in the mirror before I turned the corner of the drive. Everybody was in tears. So from this paragraph again, we get to know that this Mrs. Pomfrey was a very rich lady. Okay, was a very rich lady, and she has given enough of, okay, to that bad dog. Okay, she has pampered the dog, okay, so much that she has given everything to the dog. So when the dog was wrapped in a blanket by the narrator, and when he had taken the dog to his car, then the entire staff means the maid, the servants, okay, who were looking after her house or are looking after the dog, the entire staff, okay, they rose and they rushed in and out. What they did was that they rushed in, again they rushed out, okay, bringing his day bed, that is the dog, okay, daytime, okay, he used to sleep in other bed, and again night also he has got again another bed, okay. So they were bringing the day bed, night bed, again his favorite cushions, toys, rubber rings, again breakfast bowl, lunch bowl, supper bowl, okay, supper bowl. So all these, they were bringing all these many things, okay, because the dog is being taken, okay, in that surgery in the hospital, okay. So they were bringing all his belongings. So the narrator saw this and he realized that his car will not be able to hold all the stuff. They are bringing so much that he wouldn't be able to carry all this in his car. So what he did was that he started to drive away. And now as he moved off, okay, Mrs. Pomfrey, with a despairing cry, she was crying, okay, and she threw an armful of little goats. She was carrying, okay, goats, okay, for the dog. And so she threw the little goats through the window, okay, through the windows, goats for the dog, because earlier we have seen the dog has got many goats, right? So she has thrown the gods, okay, through the window. So the narrator looked in the mirror, and what he saw was that, okay, before he turned the corner of the tribe, he saw that everyone was in tears. Everyone was standing there and they were crying for what? Because the dog is taken to the hospital and they will miss the dog, okay. So, and that is the reason why everyone was crying. Out on the road, I glanced down at the pathetic little animal gasping on the seat by my by my side. I patted the head, and Ricky made a brave effort to wake his tail. Poor old lad, I said, you haven't a kick in you, but I think I know a cure for you. Gasping means catching one's breath with an open mouth. The dog was finding difficult to take a breath. Okay, so the dog was opening his mouth and trying to catch a breath. Okay, just with an open mouth. Is it clear? So out on the road, okay, the narrator while driving, he looked down at the pathetic, okay, at the pathetic little animal, the dog that is Tricky, okay, and he was gasping on the seat by his side. And so he patted the head, he touched his head, and Tricky also made a brave effort to shake his tail. Okay, and at that time, the narrator told to the dog, poor old lad. Okay, why it is called poor old lad? Because the dog is not well. Okay, and so he called him as a poor old lad, and he said that you haven't a kick in you. That means you don't have an energy. You don't have even an energy. But I think I know a cure for you. So the doctor knows that. Okay, knows very well that he will be fit and fine soon, because he knows a cure for him. So this is what he says: you haven't a kick in you, you don't have an energy, but I think I know a cure for you. Okay, so this is what the doctor says. So the veterinary doctor, okay, he is now taking the dog to the surgery to make him fit and fine. Okay, he's taking him in the hospital, leaving aside Mrs. Pumphrey and all the all the staff and the maids, okay, crying behind. So the next, okay, we will see in the next video. In this video, okay, I'm explaining only up to here. Okay, we will continue in the next video. Okay, thank you, students.